So there you have it. The cash crunch is obviously one of the consideration or one of the expectations from the new government. Well, the private sector business condition in Nigeria has also felt the impact of that naira scarcity, because according to the monthly reports by Stanbic IBTC, it shows that it has plummeted. In the report, Stanbic IBTC stated that the purchasing managers index sank to 44.7 in February of 2023 from 53.5 in the prior month. Also, the manufacturer CEO's confidence index for the fourth quarter of 2022 dropped to 55 points from 55.4 points recorded in the third quarter of the year. These, of course, have been alluded to: consumer price index increase, erosion in naira value, difficulty in sourcing foreign exchange for productive use, and of course, that shortage of the naira, which has become a story of a lot of Nigerians in recent time. But let's see what the manufacturers expect from the incoming administration and how these can be handled. We have the Director General, Mr. Segun Ajayi Kadri, joining us virtually from Lagos. Mr. Kadri, thank you so much for your time and good morning. How bad is this issue of the cash crunch? Are you guys feeling it, or you do a lot of virtual transactions, so you're not really feeling the pinch?
Well, thank you very much and good morning to you. It's good to see you again. Well, like you rightly explained, the cash crunch is affecting the economy. Everybody who plays in the economy, whether you are a buyer or a seller, is feeling the pain. But for us, we had indicated that this cash crunch or currency transition has led to a dip by about 25% in purchases. And for us in the manufacturing sector, even though we do most of our transactions in terms of purchasing our raw materials, in terms of doing our postings, financial postings, is done electronically. But you see, we also engage in cash transactions. And the purpose of manufacturing is to sell. And selling takes place typically at the retail end, where you have most people using cash. Even in some cases, when we have to gather our raw materials from the local areas where cash is king, you really need to be able to make those purchases, particularly from the farmers when you are aggregating the inputs for your manufacturing. So the cash crunch is high, and in recent times when we had the Supreme Court ruling and the CBN indication that they were going to probably comply, we had high hopes that it will end soon. But I think there are still some conversation that needs to happen between the CBN and probably the judiciary, so that they can find an amicable way to allow the suffering to abate. I mean, there has to be a way of implementing the Supreme Court judgment in such a way that it does not also take away the prerogative of the CBN to manage our monetary policy and how we spend money. So I think there has to be a high-level conversation between them, so that the suffering of the people is reduced, and also so that businesses can function effectively.
So, of course, this also contributed to this drop in manufacturers' confidence. Any quick fixes you see around this?
Yes, I think our MCCI, which you rightly mentioned, has continued to indicate how manufacturers feel about the economy. And we had warned at the end of last year that manufacturing was heading straight for a recession and that everything should be done to avoid it. Now, this is being demonstrated in the confidence of manufacturers in the business environment which we operate, in the employment that we do, and also in how we see the next 3 months. We have given indication now that there's less confidence. So I believe what government should do is very simple. However, it becomes complicated when you see that we're in a transition period. And this leads us to what we expect the incoming. But for quick fixes, I think we need to ensure that we prioritize the allocation of forex, because it's top 3 in what has led to the dip in the confidence of manufacturers. So I think we need to prioritize the allocation of the little forex we have to the productive sector. We have mentioned this severally. There's also the need for us to ensure that we increase the power supply. What has continued to be on the table is the eligible customer scheme that will have allowed manufacturers to take power directly from TCN. This is government policy, but some bureaucratic bottlenecks have been put in place to limit or to checkmate the access to this eligible customer scheme. We also need to look at the issue of insecurity that has led to 60% loss of manufacturing industries in the Northeast. We are saying that now that we are witnessing some relative security in those areas, the governments, that's the sub-regional government, that's the state and the federal government, should deliberately incentivize the coming on board again of manufacturing industries that have been short. Of course, there are quite a number of things that we have said in terms of policy. For instance, we have the fiscal policy measures that we have always indicated that the increase in excise for the food, beverage and tobacco group, that is the leading sector in the economy, should not be allowed to stand. Luckily, this is yet to be passed. So somewhere between the outgoing and the incoming administration, whatever happens, we should make sure that we put this one on hold. There are also the issues of the issue of forex allocation, which I have mentioned. I think the CBN has to be able to have a dialogue, especially with the manufacturing sector. We have day in, day out submitted the Form M numbers that we have filled, and for our import and export, we have indicated how much we have asked from the money deposit banks that they were not able to give. We have submitted these records diligently to the CBN as agreed. But nothing has been done to indicate that there is any leeway for the manufacturing sector, even though we are the ones that repatriate our profits from exports diligently. There is also the need for us to look at what we can do to ease the gridlock at the ports. I mean, these are low-hanging fruits that government can do to increase and boost the confidence of manufacturers. We have seen the rise in multiplicity of taxes and levies leading to the election period. But now that the first stage of the election is going, I think government should deliberately de-escalate the risk to manufacturing by ensuring that these multiple taxes and levies that are collected by the 3 tiers of government are removed. And this can come through dialogue. It's not rocket science. And we have agreed with government on taxes that are collectible by the 3 tiers of government. So I think there should just be the political will. Then we have the issue of patronage of goods made in Nigeria. There's Executive Order 003, there's Executive Order 005 that supports local purchase of locally made goods. But government itself is the greatest culprit in not implementing this executive order. So I think there has to be a monitoring and evaluation of what has been done so far to give effect to this executive order. And frankly speaking, I think we need to start to take punitive measures against government officials that have continuously flouted this executive order. We indicated at that time, and government agreed, that we could have as much as 25 to 30% increase in capacity utilization if government, which is the biggest spender in the economy, lives true to what the Executive Order 003 portends for manufacturing in Nigeria. You can imagine if all the uniform agencies in Nigeria patronize made in Nigerian products. We are going to have the shoes made and purchased here. We are going to have the uniforms made and purchased here. Even the support that we give to foreign countries in terms of military aids, the tarpaulins and those other items that are produced in Nigeria should be used and given in kind, not in cash. So there are quite a number of things that you can do to bring about an improvement in the confidence that manufacturers have in the economy and what it portends for us. Because right now, I can tell you, we are very worried about the seeming uncertainty in the political landscape. This is a transition year. Government attention is not always focused on politics, and you can imagine how much diversion this is going to bring if the issues surrounding the elections are not quickly resolved. Man is completely apolitical, but we are worried about the influence of politics on the economy. And so we look forward to not only a smooth takeover, but an effective transition from the outgoing government to the incoming government, such that the economy is not driven into the backspace. We're also looking at the government that is emerging to look carefully before selecting people that is going to man cabinet positions, particularly those ones that has to do with the economy. I think you should put rank pairs in rank holes at this time, because if we are not very careful, if there's another dip in terms of focus on the economy, we might just be looking at recession right in front of us.
A long list you have there, Mr. Kadri, and we do hope that President-elect and his people are listening to this, because, I mean, we've had a lot of policies. We have the ease of doing business policy. We have the talk about diversifying the economy, but we still have these issues staring us in the face. And as the manufacturers, that's why we saw your confidence drop, you know, in the fourth quarter, which, I mean, those things are still here. That's a long list, but tell us the conversation going on among manufacturers. As you've noted, we do have a president-elect. The level of confidence, looking at the antecedents, you know, of the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu before now. And you also pointed to the fact that it is very necessary to get the right people to occupy the right positions. Tell us the conversation going on among manufacturers when it comes to expectation, looking at the person, you know, who now occupies the title of president-elect of Nigeria.
Okay, thank you. Because we are an apolitical organization, it will be very difficult for us to talk about individuals and how we perceive them, particularly when we are still at the level of the president-elect. We, of course, wish all political parties well, but focusing on the president-elect, I think there has to be a realization that our economy is in dire straits. The inflation rate is 21.82% today. Currency is exchanging at 750 in the black market, which is the real market for us. Interest rate, lending rate, for instance, is about 27.63%. Unemployment is 33.3%. Our GDP growth rate is about 3.5%. Our government debt to GDP ratio is 37%. These figures are no comfort zone for anyone. And I think that should be the realization that the president-elect should have. It is a tough, tough economic situation. So he needs to hit the ground speeding, not even running. There has to be, and I think he needs to declare, for instance, 100 days must do. And those ones must be to stop the bleeding and facilitate the growth. So all the binding constraints that are be presented to him, he should address them frontally. Luckily for us, we have produced the blueprint for the accelerated development of manufacturing in Nigeria. And during the campaigns, we gave this to all the political parties. We sought out the economic team, and we made sure that they have it. We also added to it the 10-year agenda that we spoke about during our last AGM. It was presented by the biggest industrialist in Africa, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, and we have given these copies to all the political parties. So the president-elect, for instance, has this document. We are ready and willing to engage, and we will help through the process. of reviving the sector, because manufacturing sector has to be mainstream as a very important sector. I've always said that manufacturing is not just a vocation, it's a strategic choice that every country has to make, such that you are able to secure, you are able to have security completely. It's not just about security against violence and insurgency and the rest, but you need to be able to secure your economy. You need to be able to internally generate what can keep you away from the, or minimize the impact of international shocks. And that means prioritizing productivity, and manufacturing comes first in this regard. So there is no doubt that the president-elect has a lot of things waiting for him. And if I were in his shoes, I will stop sleeping, I will stay wide awake, and to focus on those binding constraints that will ensure that the confidence that have been reposed in him by the citizenry are not, that they are not disappointed. I think it is very important not to take it as business as usual. I have no doubt that millions of Nigerians who have voted, whichever way they voted, must have reflected the confidence they have in the personality. They must have seen the pedigree, that he has, and they must naturally expect that he will turn things around. The people that surround him, we've known some of them. So there is need for us to put a lot of confidence in whatever decisions we have taken, and for us to ensure that the economy is the better for it.
All right, Director General of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Mr. Segun Ajayi Kadri, thank you so much for telling us the thoughts of the manufacturers at this time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, after this short break, we'll look at what's going on, or expectations from the states, more like it. The election is just a couple of days away, and I guess your PVCs are out again for you to use. Before then, let's find out what the states should be doing, or the candidates should be focusing on, or what they should be saying at this time. That's after this break here on Business Morning on Channels Television.